بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وعلى من تبع هداهم إلى يوم الدين. Tonight is the 16th of Rabiul Awwal, 1439 years after Hijrah. We're studying Adab Al-Mufrad by Imam Bukhari, and we've reached Hadeeth 526. Hadeeth 526, similar to number 514, with a different isnad.
Give me the chapter title, please.
Chapter 240, what to say to someone who is ill.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وعلى من تبع هداهم إلى يوم الدين. The chapter title, what does the person say to the person who is sick or ill? We have discussed the hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha when she had entered upon her father. Along with him was Bilal radiallahu anhu. And he had said, and she said to her father, كيف تجدك? How are you? So she asked, so the person who comes to the ill person, he would say, how are you? And also he would say the following words, لا بأس طهور عليك إن شاء الله. There is no harm upon you, inshallah. لا بأس طهور. طهور means purification. Purification here from the sins. The hadith we just mentioned, 526, which is the same hadith of 514. Please, can you quote that hadith? Jazakallahu khairan.
Hadith 514. Ibn Abbas said, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam went to visit a Bedouin when he was ill, and said, don't worry, it is a purification if Allah so wills. Ibn Abbas said, the Bedouin said, it is a fever which boils in an old man and will cause him to visit the grave. He said, then it is so.
The hadith was explained under the person, the Prophet ﷺ would visit the mushrik. We discussed the hadith there, and we have mentioned in there the hadith regarding the Prophet of Allah visiting the Jewish person. And also this hadith is mentioned under the chapter, that is chapter, what was the chapter title? Chapter title is for that in English?
What to say to someone who is ill?
No, visiting the Arab, which is the Bedouins, it says? Visiting the Arab, is it?
Visiting the Bedouins. No.
Yeah, visiting the Bedouins. And the Prophet of Allah, he entered upon an Arabi. And the Arabi were known to be very harsh. People who speak, words which are not eloquent, and they always as well dare themselves onto the Prophet ﷺ. So as soon as the Prophet of Allah, he paid him a visit to the Arabi, he said to him the words that the person should say always to the people who are ill, لا بأس طهور inshallah. Inshallah, it will be purification for you. So he said, طهور, is it purification? كلا, no, بل هي حمى تفور. It's actually a boiling fever. أو تثور على شيخ كبير, that is upon an old man. تزيره القبور, it will cause him to go to the graves. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, he said, فنعم إذن, then let it be. So the man, he had basically did not accept the words of the Prophet of Allah when he said purification. He said to him, verily, it's not purification, it is boiling fever. How can you say it's purification? How can it be a purification? And that's when the Prophet of Allah said, if you want it like this, then suit yourself. This is the hadith which is under also the chapter title, which is what to say to the person who's ill. Now we're going to the following chapter, or following hadith, sorry.
Hadith 527. Nafi' said, when Ibn Umar visited someone who was ill, he would ask him how he was. When he left the invalid, he would say, may Allah choose what is best for you, and did not say anything more than that.
The translation is not correct. Allah had chosen for you. It's not may Allah choose for you. Allah had chosen for you. Okay, the hadith is unauthentic. Hadith is unauthentic. Can I ask the brother who's got the sister there? Can she hear?
Yeah, it's a bit quiet.
A bit quiet because it's rubbish. No, it's not because it's rubbish. no, this is rubbish, not the holding. Just keep it to the... Right. I'm gonna
qualify this show.
It doesn't work, it's too low. I know. It's too low. This one is okay.
Yeah, you can take this one.
No, but he wants to read as well.
He can read this by holding.
Okay, put it in your mouth and swallow it. I mean it. Really. Okay. No, it's not going to work. طيب. This hadith is unauthentic. And the meaning of it is sound. Abdullah ibn Umar, he said, every time he enters upon an ill person, he would ask him, how are you? How do you feel? And if he leaves, he would say, Allah had chosen for you. Allah had chosen for you this disease and illness. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would purify you. So accept the destiny of Allah. That's what it means. Going to the following chapter.
Chapter 241. What the sick person answers. Hadith 528.
اخواني بس معلش تكلموا صوتكم يطلع لهم الله يجزيكم الخير يبارك فيكم. نعم.
Sa'id bin Amr said, Al-Hajjaj visited Ibn Umar while he was with him. He asked, how are you? He said, fine. He asked, who did you harm? He said, I have been harmed by someone who ordered people to carry arms on a day when it is not lawful to carry them. He meant Al-Hajjaj.
Translate the hadith again, please. Hajjaj entered upon Ibn Umar.
Al-Hajjaj visited Ibn Umar while I was with him.
Who was with him?
Sa'id ibn Umar.
Correct.
He asked, how are you? He said, fine. He asked, who did you harm? He said, I have been harmed by someone who ordered people to carry arms on a day when it is not lawful to carry them. He meant Al-Hajjaj.
Right. This chapter is titled, that is what the person who is ill responds to the person who is visiting him. The first chapter, the chapter before that, it is what the person says when he visits an ill person. So this is the response of the ill person to the person who is visiting him. Al-Hajjaj was a leader at that time of Al-Hijaz. He was the leader of Al-Hijaz province in Saudi Arabia. And he entered upon Abdullah ibn Umar. Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi is a tyrant leader. He was as well used by Abdul Malik ibn Marwan. He's the one who was known to assassinate more than 120,000 people. But look at him. He's paying a visit to a Sahabi companion. So he entered on Abdullah ibn Umar, and Sa'id ibn Amr ibn Sa'id, he was with him. This is one of the followers. So he says, the Hajjaj, to Sa'id, how is he? So Abdullah ibn Umar is listening. Abdullah, how is he? Oh, I'm fine. No problem with me. So then Al-Hajjaj asked him, who had hit you? Here, hit you because it was narrated in a different narration with authentic chain that the Sinan al-Rum, which is the end of the spear, had injured the bottom of his feet. You know that pallet which is underneath, the soft one, had injured it and actually stuck to the saddle of his camel. So he was in pain. So here he said to him, who did hit you? Who had struck you with this? Who had injured you? So straight away, Abdullah ibn Umar, he says, the one who had injured me is the one who had commanded for the weapon to be carried on a day which is not supposed to be carried. And the one who's commanded here, he had meant Al-Hajjaj himself. In another narration, he said himself, it is you who hit me, is you. So he said to him, how did I hit you? I wasn't there. How did I hit you? So he said, you have carried the weapon in a place you're not supposed to carry the weapon there. And the place here, Al-Haram, Mecca. It is not allowed to carry weapon inside the Kaaba, where the people, they make their Hajj and Umrah and their Ibadah. So they're supposed to be in total safety. So there's no supposed to be people are fearing for people to carry guns. It's not allowed. That's why you find the police there and allowed and they're not carrying guns in the area. Because carrying guns, even it will scare the people, but also that it might trigger by accident. And God knows what's going to happen. So every time there is congestion, lots of people together, it's not allowed for us to carry one weapon unless there's an enemy that's about to attack us. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ, he had said, he who passes by our masajid or passes by our markets and he's got the arrow's got a sharp metal or a sword or anything which is sharp, then let him cover the sharp end with something. So the arrow should not be exposed, because if you pass by the masjid people or you are coming out of the masjid, lots of people, you might what? Cut a person. So you're not supposed to do that. So he said, the Prophet of Allah said, لا يعقر بكفه مسلم, that he will not be injuring with his arrow a hand of a Muslim, a leg of a Muslim, something like this. So it is not allowed to carry weaponry in such areas unless they are afraid for an enemy is about to attack them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had allowed us to carry the weapons when we are praying the prayer of the fear, khawf. Salat al-khawf, which makes the 4 rak'ah, 2 rak'ah, the 3 stays the 3, but this is in level 1 fear. But if you have level 2, extreme fear, then it is 1 rak'ah. And 1 rak'ah, you could pray it the way that you like. You could pray it while you're shooting, because the enemy is engaging with you and you cannot let go of the enemy. And your prayer is as well, it's time, you have to do it, because otherwise you lose it. So you have to do the prayer, and at the same time you have to what? Be alert and engage with the enemy. So you could be fighting with a sword or shooting with a gun, and at the same time offering you what? Your prayer. And that is why one of the companions was commanded to assassinate someone, and the prayer time was on. So he started walking towards him while he's praying, and at the same time he wants to what? Assassinate him. So he prayed the prayer of the what? The prayer of the khawf, the fear. Prayer of the khawf is a fascinating prayer. If you put on YouTube Salat al-Khawf or prayer of the fear, performed by, I think, Malaysian army to train themselves on it, it shows you how the congregational prayer is divided into 2 groups, and those 2 groups will be swapping in the middle of the prayer. 1 rak'ah will be with the imam, and then the second rak'ah they will start swapping. And even more fascinating when the enemy is actually the opposite side of the qibla. When the enemy is the opposite side of qibla, we cannot be all of us praying jama'ah with facing what? The qibla and our back to the enemy. So it's not just say, come on, make tawakkul upon Allah and pray. No, this is not tawakkul upon Allah. This is committing suicide. It's not tawakkul upon Allah and you pray. You have to make tawakkul upon Allah, and at the same time you do your best to what? Protect yourself. So Prophet of Allah is keen to make the jama'ah even in such situation. He divides the army to 2 parts. One part will be absolutely the other way from the qibla, facing the enemies. That's the back of the army. And the other group will be facing the qibla. And prayer will start, Allahu Akbar, and everybody will say Allahu Akbar. So those people who are the soldiers will be saying Allahu Akbar in the opposite direction of the qibla. And that is accepted because it's a fear prayer. And then the Prophet ﷺ would recite, and then after that he will make ruku', and all the army will make ruku', and those people will make ruku' towards what? The other direction of Qibla, with their eyes locked into the enemies. Then Sami Allahu liman hamida, Sami Allah everybody. So the army will be Sami Allah liman hamidi with the imam, direction of Qibla, the other one, the opposite. And when they go Allahu Akbar for prostration, one group will go, which is the one facing the Qibla, and the other one what? Stay still, standing. They will not make sujood, because they cannot make all of them sujood. The enemy is watching, and they want to kill all of the Muslims. So they have to wait until they finish first sajda and second sajda. Then after that, when they stand up, Prophet ﷺ says, Allahu Akbar, he will stand up. And those people who are stood up and they finish the rak'ah, they will swap with the ones who are halting on Sami Allah liman hamida. So they will go and face the Qibla behind the Prophet of Allah, and they will make their own sajda. First sajda, second sajda, and then they will stand up for the second rak'ah, and so all of them are the same now. And they will do the same thing. So the Prophet of Allah will go Fatiha, recitation, then ruku', all of them ruku' like this. The army will be one towards the enemy, one towards the Qibla. Then Sami Allah liman hamida, and then we'll go to sujood. The ones with the Prophet of Allah go to sujood, the other one will what? Stay still. And that's how it is. SubhanAllah. What a fascinating prayer. There are 6 ways of praying the Salat al-Khawf. Can I ask for release of the air, please? I'm sweating. I feel that it's hot coming from here, heat. Can you open the window for me here, or is it hot? But do you feel hot, brothers, or? Some of the brothers feel cold. I don't know why. So either we wrong or you wrong, guys. Which one is wrong? If you're cold, can I move here, please? Can I move in this side? Yes, please. I want to move to this side because I'm hot. You guys listening, but I'm the one who's talking, so I'm doing the energy here. Always come put me here.
I think it's okay. It'll be fine.
Jazakallah khair. Oof. That's better for me. I love this cold. So Abdullah ibn Umar, he said to Al-Hajjaj, you're not supposed to carry the weapon in a day where there's a haram there, where people are in the haram. So when you commanded for that and when you carried the weapon, that's what happened to me. I was struck. So it's not you directly struck me, but through you I was struck. So this is to prevent, what we benefit from this, to prevent carrying the weaponry in the areas like the masjids, the haram, and all of those where there's congestion. And we learn from this, what do you answer for the person who pays you a visit? You say, how are you? You say to him, good, or to any effect, good, I'm fine, alhamdulillah, mashallah, I'm alright, so I'm in pain, no problem, I'm in pain, alhamdulillah. So that's how you answer and you respond. And also, we find here, that's how courageous is the companions. He's talking to the leader himself. So he said, the one who struck me is you. How did they strike you? He said, you are the one who carried the weapon in a day, in a place you're not supposed to carry the weapon. And this is what the Prophet of Allah, he said, the best of the jihad, a word of haqq in the presence of a tyrant leader, not behind his back. He never said to other people to erupt against the Hajjaj. No, in front of the Hajjaj, he said, you are the one, you are the reason. That's why I was injured. So no problem if you see a tyrant leader yourself, you talk to him, there's no problem. As long as you guarantee for yourself you're not going to be killed, or you're going to be imprisoned, and then God knows what's going to happen to you. You go inside sheikh, and then outside they come out, what? Dancer. You don't know what's going to happen to you. Would you be able to take the torture? Allahu A'lam. So you be careful. So, but it says here the companions are daring themselves. So also in this, we could find as well, Sadd al-Dhara'i'. Sadd al-Dhara'i' means always you block the gates and the routes that will entail disasters or bad things. How is that? When the person is not allowed to carry weaponry or things which are sharp in areas where people are vulnerable, they might be injured, you're not supposed to do that. So that is called Sadd al-Dhara'i'. So anything that would lead to something bad, you should block it. You should stop it. طيب. Coming now to the following chapter.
Chapter 242. Visiting someone who is erring, fasiq. Hadeeth 529. Abdullah bin Amr bin al-As said, do not visit wine drinkers when they are ill.
Chapter title, Iyadat al-Fasiq. to visit the fasiq. Fasiq is the evildoer. Fusuq is the one fasiq, the evildoer. So what did he put there?
It says erring in fasiq.
Erring is being wrong, but it's the evildoer, fasiq. Because here underneath it is the one who drinks. The hadith or the athar is unauthentic. But the chapter title is being meant here by the Imam al-Bukhari. Do we visit the people who are evildoers or not? And here he mentions the athar of Abdullah ibn Amr al-As. Don't visit the people who are what? Drunkard. We said the athar is not authentic, but we want to elaborate, even if it's not authentic, that on the title of the chapter. Imam al-Bukhari is bringing this chapter to say to you that visiting the fasiq, it has to be for two reasons. Reason number one is that to make sure that you're going to benefit him. Tell him off. So that is the one. Number two, to bring him to the haqq. So tell him off and bring him to the deen. But if it's going to be more of an impact on the person, for you not to visit him because you are a known righteous person, sheikh, alim. So if you didn't pay a visit to him and that would give a more impact onto the person, then don't pay him a visit. So if, for example, this drunkard person, and he drinks and all of that, and he got ill, and you as a sheikh or a well-known person did not pay a visit to him, and that would reflect positively onto him, not negatively, because if you don't visit him and then the drunkard friends of his came to visit him, that would make him to be more drunkard. But if the impact of it is a positive, then do it. And if you think by paying the visit to the fasiq, you're going to give the wrong message to the people, that is either to scratch your dignity and your reputation, or for example, you're going to give them the wrong message by saying that no harm, come and visit the fasiq, encouraging him to do more fisq. If he's a drunkard, make him to drink more. Then don't do the visit. So that is for you to decide. Shall I pay him a visit or not? So, we know that the biggest fasiq is the kafir. Can you have more fisq than kufr? No. And there are brothers who have actually embraced Islam where? In the prison. True or not? Being paid a visit because they were imprisoned by somebody who was a sheikh or a person who's a preacher, and they paid him a visit. So that visit is to bring him to the deen. And lots of people in the prisons embrace Islam. Lots of them. They turn from wicked people to very sociable people. Very beneficial to the society. Some of them stay the same, of course. But that paying the visit, whether he's ill or is in the prison, if you're paying the person who is ill in his mind, ill in his heart, fasiq, then you have to study that visit. Is it good for him or is it not? Coming to the following chapter.
Chapter 243. Women visiting a man who is ill. Hadeeth 530. Al-Harith bin Ubaydullah al-Ansari said, I saw Al-Adab going to visit an Ansari man from the mosque, and she was on her mount in an uncovered howdah.
Go on. It's not visit. It's finished?
Yeah, that's that hadith.
Read it again. I've seen Darda.
I saw Al-Darda going to visit an Ansari man from the mosque.
Oh, so they started in the beginning. Yes, go on.
And she was on her mount in an uncovered howdah.
Okay. This athar is unauthentic. But the chapter title, we're going to understand it. First of all, it says the women paying a visit to the sick men. We have to restrict this in the right category. You remember with me, you could put this Aisha hadith. You remember Aisha hadith? Which number is it? Hadith hadith 525. You could put that underneath that chapter. Who had paid a visit here? Aisha to her father, along with him. Who's that? Bilal. So if the woman, she is visiting like her father, let's say her brother, her son, old son, and next to him there's a man, and she's covered, and there will be no fitna, Then at the same time, when she's visiting him, she could, for example, do the same, different, just second, next bed. She could ask that man, how are you? You're okay? As long as there's no fitna. So if it's an old woman, okay, it's an old woman, there's no fitna, but a young lady, she's paying, visit to somebody who is young chap, and you say that halal, it's not really going to be right. So young ladies, young girls, young women, and this young man, okay, he's not old, very old, and so that's not right, because that will trigger the fitna, and it's not right. So with that restriction, no problem if it's a very old woman to pay a visit to a man, because and especially if it's relatives, like for example, it's your cousin, okay? So she's a woman and she's young and she's your cousin, but she's got a mahram with her. Her brother, her father is with her. No problem. It's always happening with the relationship. Or an old woman. She's visiting yourself on your own. But she's old. She's about 80 years old. She hardly walks. She came to pay you a visit. And you're a young man. That's no problem, inshaAllah. That's good. So always, the fitna, if it's not there, it's allowed, Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. But as for the athar, is unauthentic. Going to the following chapter.
Chapter 244. The person who dislikes visitors looking at other things in the house. Hadeeth 531. Abdullah bin Abi Hudayl said Abdullah ibn Mas'ud went to visit a sick person with some other people. There was a woman in the room, and one of the men began to look at her. Abdullah said to him, "It would have been better for you if your eyes had been gouged out."
Can you read me the chapter title now?
The person who dislikes visitors looking at other things in the house.
Now, is it dislike or is it haram, prohibition? According to this athar of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, what do you think? He said it's better for your eye to be gouged rather than to look at something which is not of your concern, to look at that woman. It's haram. I mean, if it's dislike, you don't really, poke the eye of somebody. So that is haram. So the dislike is correct translation of the word. But it means here the dislike is what? Prohibition. It's like exactly what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran. وَكَرَّهَ إِلَيْكُمُ الْكُفْرَ وَالْفُسُوقَ وَالْعِصْيَانَ. And He made it for you disliked. Kufr, disbelief. Fusuq, corruption. And isyan, disobedience. Are these dislike or haram? But the word is used what? Karraha, means dislike. And that's what the Imam Shafi'i uses the same word of the Quran. He said, كَرِهْتُ لِلرَّجُلِ أَنْ يَتَزَوَّجَ أُخْتَ زَوْجَتِهِ وَهِيَ عَلَى قَيْدِ الْحَيَاةِ. It is, I dislike for the person to marry the sister of his wife while she is his wife. Is that dislike haram or not haram? Are you allowed to marry the sister of your wife while she's with you? Allah says, وَالْجَمْعُ وَأَنْ تَجْمَعَ بَيْنَ الْأُخْتَيْنِ. And it's to combine between the two sisters. You can't do that. So here the word dislike used by Imam Shafi'i is in the terminology of what? Haram. So Imam Shafi'i he goes along with the Quranic terminologies. So it's haram. Absolutely haram. So here it's haram for the person when he pays a visit to somebody, whether he's in the hospital or he's at home, and he start looking where he's not supposed to be looking. Maybe there's a window open or a gap through the door, and start looking, being nosy, just to see. And he could have his eye laid on a lady, she's not really dressed properly, coat undressed. How can you do that? You're paying a visit to the sick man. So you're having a sick heart. So the person should be careful with this issue. So Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he paid a visit to a person, and he's got people with him. And there was a woman in the house. One of those people who was with him started to look at the woman. He'd been noticed by Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. So he said to him, Wallahi, if your eyes to be gouged out is better than for you to go and look at her. If your eyes to be gouged out is better than what? Doing what you're doing. And this is not only that. Prophet of Allah ﷺ, he said that, which is the hadith of Sahih Bukhari Muslim, that if a person had looked at you without the permission of yours, he looked at you without your permission, that means you're caught undressed, and you caught or you took a hasa, which is a pebble, and you threw it and you poked his eye with it, then there will be no retaliation. So even one day the Prophet of Allah, he saw a person is peeping through what? The door, looking. So the Prophet ﷺ, he was getting ready his arrow. He wants to poke him in his eye. So as soon as he wanted to do that, the door was opening. He said, I almost poked your eye. I almost gouged your eye. So if somebody's looking with a, peeping somebody's house, this is one of those things. This is an Islamic concept, though, not here. So if you poke somebody's eye, you tell, well, the Sheikh told us to do that. I'm not responsible. I'm telling you, I'm not joking. Right. So there is no retaliation. This is from the things which are having exceptions. That is, to carry the punishment with your own self without the presence of the Sultan. In Islamic state, you are allowed to take the laws into your hand in this state, in this situation. To take the law into your what? Into your hands. And apply it without referring to the Sultan, to the leader. So if somebody is peeping with my rope, poke his eye. Sorry, his eye is gone, no retaliation on you. You take it to the judge, there's nothing on you. These are from the things which are having exception. Anybody tell me another thing which is about exception as well? When you pray. You know when you pray, and you've got a sutra, something in front of you, the wall, tree, whatever, and there's somebody try to what? To cross. So you put your hand. Still across. Put your hand. If he doesn't want to just hit him, and he falls and he dies, no retaliation. So if you put your hand the first time, and he doesn't want to listen second time, third time, you could really give him. And that's an Islamic state again. Push him if he dies or he broke his foot or whatever, not your responsibility. It's one of the things which is having been given exception. Prophet ﷺ said, he's got shaitan with him, or he himself is shaitan. But remember, this is I'm talking about fiqh, not talking about what you should do. Because remember, we talk about black dogs. You remember black dogs? So black dogs in Islam, they're not supposed to be police dogs or blind leading dogs or anything like this, because they're shaitan. If you say that, you've been caught saying this, BBC takes you, or whatever, dispatches program, or whatever, and they're going to say, these Muslims are torturers, cruel. Look at what they say about the black dog. So the black dog will be sympathized with, and millions of Muslims, wicked, evil, because of a black dog. And I'll tell you what, يا أخي, خاطب الناس على قدر عقولهم. Talk to the people according to their mentality, their level of understanding. This is said by Abdullah ibn Mas'ud and said by Ali ibn Abi Talib, because you don't want the Islam to be focused on and humiliated in this way. So I cannot talk to these people who are not ready to accept such statements, who are not Muslim. Black dogs in our Muslim country should be put down. Can't do that. In our Muslim countries, we say it in our Muslim country, but you say to these people, this is not the way to preach, you understand? For them, the black dogs are precious. Their dogs, never mind the black dogs, all of them precious, except if it go and attacks their sons and children. That's when they understand. That's when they understand. Prophet ﷺ, he said, had it been that dogs is one of the nations, I would have commanded for them to be killed. Why? Because they terrorize the people. If you go to the park, like me, I go in the morning, for example, you have to be vigilant. Because lots of people are walking with their machine guns. I mean, they're dogs. And I call them machine guns. They are machine guns. Any moment that dog could what? Attack. And I'm scared. I'm taking him. So when he comes to me, because some of them are really big. And if they see you scared, maybe they'll attack you as well. And if you do anything to these dogs, don't harass my dog. Harassment. What about my harassment? SubhanAllah. Don't harass your dog. What about me? You walk in with your machine gun. Wallah, it's a machine gun. That's terrorization. Because that dog hasn't been covered his mouth properly. And he's been not on the lead. He's walking on his own. What do you expect me to do? I'm going to be frozen. One time I was with my children. They were barking at my children. My children was really terrified. They don't care about the terrifying of the children. But don't terrify the dog. What's this? It's not justice yet. Right. Going now to the following hadith. Chapter
245. Visiting someone with eye trouble. Hadith 5.
Eye trouble?
Eye trouble.
Eye infection would be better.
Visiting someone with eye infection. Hadith 532. Zayd bin Arqam said, I had a pain in my eyes, and the Prophet ﷺ visited me. When I recovered, he said, Zayd, if your eyes were to persist in their illness, what would you do? I said, I would be patient and reckon my reward to be with Allah. He said, if that happens to your eyes and you are patient and reckon your reward to be with Allah, then your reward will be the garden.
No, actually, if you've gone blind, if your eye goes blind, and you'll be patient on it. But anyway, the beginning of the hadith is the authentic and the rest is not authentic. What is authentic here is that my eye had been infected or got some problems in it, and the Prophet of Allah paid me a visit, and that's it. As for the rest of it, and what he said, the Prophet of Allah to the Zayd, if your eyes is to get blind, what would you do? He said, I will be patient and I will hope for the reward. And he asked him again, so he said to him, and then he said, if you do that, then your reward will be Jannah, paradise. As I said, the rest of the hadith are not authentic, but the meaning is sound. Now the chapter title says to pay a visit to somebody who's got an eye problem or eye infection. That is to encounter what is said by so many laymen, people they don't know anything. They say, no, you can't pay a visit to somebody who's just got an eye problem. It has to be a big disease. It has to be a cancer, something, big major operation, heart attack. But none of it's got, no. This chapter title brought by Imam Bukhari to show that even if the person with a small disease, you could pay him a visit. So somebody's got a toothache, no problem. Somebody's got a headache, no problem. Somebody's got flu, no problem. So there's a reward when you pay visit these people. So people, they don't consider flu as an illness these days. Toothache is an illness. If you tell them I paid you a visit because you've got a toothache, they will laugh at you. You paid me a visit for a toothache. They laugh. They make a joke of you. So this is the authors brought this. Is even the eye problem, which is that problem, so it's an infection, because that infection is gonna maybe develop later on to lose what? The whole sight. So that is the whole chapter is about to show that basically that the person pays a visit to the ill person regardless how small his illness, how simple his illness, no problem inshallah. And there's an exception. The exception is that you don't pay a visit to an ill person whom his disease has been diagnosed is infectious. Do you understand that? That as soon as you get to him, you might caught the disease. You might catch it. Contaminate it. Infectious disease. So, Prophet of Allah, he said, لا عدوى ولا هامة ولا صفر. There is no infection. There is no something called hamma, which is the hamma is the bird, basically. That they used to believe in it, bringing disaster at the time of Quraysh. Or safar. Safar also the month, they think that there is something wrong happened to it. Some people will be affected by it, the month of Safar. قال واتقوا المجذوم كما يتقى الأسد. And be aware from the person who is got leprosy, just like you run away from the lion. You know the leprosy is a contagious disease, isn't it? Yes? It will infect lots of people. Prophet of Allah is saying there is no infection, no contagious disease. But at the same time he says, run away from the what? The one who's got leprosy, just like you run away from the what? The lion. How do you run away from the lion? You don't look back, do you? So if you look back, he will kill you. Keep running. Same thing here, you don't come to the person who's got contagious disease. But the Prophet said, there's no contagious disease. What does that mean? There's no contagious disease the way that the Jahili used to believe, which is contagious disease is a God in itself. Infection is the God in itself. So Prophet ﷺ wants to abolish that. And he says, no, everything is with the will of Allah. Can't you see that there are two people, comes to a person who's got a disease that would catch, very easy to catch. One will take the disease and the other one will not take it. Why? Permission of Allah. Both people were vulnerable. They came inside. One of them caught the disease and the other one did not. But the Prophet of Allah said to us not to go. And he said, لا يورد الممرض على المصح. The person who's ill with this contagious disease should not go to the person who's healthy. And that's why he said as well, if you had heard about a land that's got a plague, don't enter it. And if you're in a land where the plague took place, don't come out of it. Why? Don't spread the disease. So that's an exception. 533 is to be unauthentic. So read it, but it's unauthentic.
533. Qasim bin Muhammad said, one of the companions of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam lost his eyesight and people visited him. This man said, I wanted my eyes to look on the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, but now that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has died, by Allah, it would not delight me if my eyes were like the eyes of the gazelles of Tibala.
So, well, for verily, that is not authentic, but we know that the companions loved their Prophet Muhammad so much. So he said, this is basically that when his sight is gone, he said, I wanted just to have it, just to see what Prophet Allah. So when the Prophet Allah died, he said, I don't care about these eyes. They're no use for me, because I wanted to see the Prophet ﷺ. So the meaning of it is sound, but the athar itself is unauthentic. We go to 534, please.
534. Anas said, I heard the Prophet ﷺ say, Allah the Mighty and Exalted said, when I test him, the servant, in his two dearest ones, that is his eyes, and he is patient, I will repay him with the garden.
Jannah. Look at that. He said, إِذَا ابْتَلَيْتُهُ بِحَبِيبَتَيْ. Habib means dear. Habibi, my dear, my love. So the two lovely things we use are what? The eyes. And this hadith shows you that the most precious amongst your limbs is the eyes. Most precious. So somebody gave you a choice. And you are being caught. Either you're going to lose your hearing, or your sense for smelling, or you lose, for example, any other limb, or your eyes. Which one you choose? You're going to be leaving the last one is the what? The eyes. Take my hearing, take my tongue, take my senses, but leave me the eyes. Very precious for the person. So the Prophet of Allah, he said that Allah had said. Allah, that means Hadith Qudsi. What is the Hadith Qudsi? Words from the Prophet, meaning from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah had said, if I struck the person with his own dearest thing, with his two eyes, and he's been patient, I will compensate him or recompense him with Jannah. Why he mentioned this hadith in the chapter of to pay a visit to the person who's got eye infection? Because eye infection would lead to what? Blindness. To be blind. So here he said, if I struck you with the two lovely things of yours, then, and you be patient, then Jannah is yours. Now, 535.
535. Abu Umama said, the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah says, O son of Adam, when I take the two precious ones, that is the eyes, from you, and you are patient when the first shock happened, and reckon your reward with Allah, the only reward which I am content for you is to have is the garden.
Right. Hadith Abu Umama is almost the same as hadith of Anas radiallahu anhu. Allah says, O son of Adam, if I take now, he said of Habibatain, he said Karimataik. Kareem means the precious. So the two dearest and the two precious. And your eyes are precious. Allah has given it to you, and you should use it in the halal. You should stop using it for the haram. So they are your precious, as Allah has mentioned. And I've given it to you, Allah says, I've given it to you. You use them for what pleases Him. You don't use it for what displeases Him. So when we talked about the man coming to the house and looking around, being nosy, haram, catching people, going to the hospitals as well to pay a visit to the people, got nurses which are naked, you start looking at their legs or their chest, and start something moving in you, bringing the lust, you know, the things that are calm, as soon as you do the look, they start, provoking you. So keep those eyes guarded, and not to use them for displeasing Allah Azza wa Jal, because Allah has given you this ni'mah of seeing. So use them for seeing the halal, seeing the Quran, seeing the deen, seeing your brothers, seeing your wife, seeing your children. Don't use them for you seeing haram. So he said, if Allah Azza wa Jal, he said, if son of Adam, if I take your eyes and you be patient in the first strike of crisis, and this is the important thing, you be patient at the beginning, because some people, when they're struck with a crisis, as the scholars they said, they act like animals, and they do. The way they behave and how they lose their temper and they start shouting, crying and jumping and screaming. Some of them commit suicide because of a crisis. They behave like animals. Why? Because they haven't got the patience or the qadr of Allah. This is the destiny of Allah. So every time you're struck with a crisis, you remember that everything is with a qadr. So you've been hit, you've been struck, it's already been written. Why are you moaning about it? Why do you want to object on the qadr of Allah Azza wa Jalla? Is everything's been written 50,000 years before everything was created? Everything was said. Whatever strikes you is with the permission of Allah Azza wa Jalla. So if it is the case, I have to relax. Qadr Allah Azza wa Jalla. My eyes, I haven't done anything problem. Allah had tested me with my eyes, then they're lost. So you don't really do things which are fool. And people who do fool things are the ones who are lacking tawheed. You lack tawheed, you act like an animal. You lack tawheed, you start doing things which are stupid. These people who celebrate the birthday of the Prophet of Allah, they don't have no tawheed. And look at the way they are really celebrating the birthday. Putting the lights in their cars and ribbon in their masajid. Look at the Sufis, how they shake their heads. Look at an old man, he's jumping like a loony, crazy person. Why is he doing like this? Because there is no tawheed, akhi. The tawheed is the one that calms them down. Monotheism. You understand this Quran and Sunnah properly with that proper aqidah. These people don't have aqidah. And that's why they're jumping up and down. Doing things that are these people are sound-minded? No, they haven't. So, when the person is patient on the first strike of that, one day the Prophet of Allah passed by a woman whom she had lost her son. So he says to her, Isbiri wahtasibi. Be patient and reckon for the reward or hope for the reward from Allah the Almighty. So she said, Ilayka anni, go away. Prophet Allah left. So somebody came to her. It was the Prophet who was talking to her. She didn't know. Like death came onto her. So she went straight away to follow the Prophet. Prophet of Allah entered his house. She enters upon him to show you there's no secretaries, there's no bodyguards. Straight away to the Prophet, the head of the state. Prophet of Allah, I didn't know it was you. He said, well, verily, the patience is in the first strike of the crisis. That means you lost it now. You're going to be patient now, you lost it. The patience, when I said to you and you said to me, go away, you lost your temper. So you be patient from the first instance. So every time something right, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi. Allahumma ajurni fi musibati wa akhlif fi khayran minha. وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. We're going to strike you, we're going to test you. With lack of food, lack of product, strike crisis into your money, into your wealth, loss of the dearest members of your family. All of that going to be tested. What are you going to say? Why is it me? No, he said, Alhamdulillah. This is Qadar Allah. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. To Allah we belong, and to Him we shall return. Oh Lord, reward me my calamity. Bestow me something better in exchange. So if he hopes for the reward, be patient. Allah will give you the Jannah. Following chapter.
Chapter 246. Where does the person visiting a sick person sit? Hadeeth 536. Ibn Abbas said, when the Prophet ﷺ visited a sick person, he would sit by his head and then say 7 times,
أسأل الله العظيم رب العرش العظيم أن يشفيك.
I ask Allah the Immense, the Lord of the Immense Throne, to cure you. If his time had not yet come, he was cured of his pain.
Allahu Akbar. Where does the person sit when he pays a visit to the sick person? We have mentioned, if you remember, Hadith number 524. Prophet of Allah paid a visit to the Jewish boy. Where did he sit? Next to his head. Why the person sits next to his head? For 3 reasons. Reason number 1, that is, it's more of sympathizing with a person who is ill. Because you're going to have a chit chat. So if you're too far, you're going to be shouting, it's going to be too tired for him. And too tired for him as well to listen to you. Too tired to respond, too tired to listen. Just sit to him. Number 2, more of loving. When you're next to him, he loves you to be next to him. Third one is that when you want to make the dua and the ruqya and all of that, you'll be next to put your head. How are you going to put your head if you're sitting far away? So sitting next to him, you'll be three shots in one bullet. Prophet of Allah, whenever he pays his visit to the sick person, he sits next to his head. So he paid a visit. Prophet said, Prophet of Allah, whenever he pays a visit to the sick man, he would sit next to his head. Then he would say 7 times. Sometimes he says other than this dua, but he says, أسأل الله العظيم رب العرش العظيم أن يشفيك. And he would repeat, أسأل الله العظيم رب العرش العظيم أن يشفيك. أسأل الله العظيم رب العرش العظيم أن يشفيك. That means he said it with loud voice, but Abdullah ibn Abbas is narrating it. He said it inaudible. It's not like, I don't know what he was saying. And it's good for the person to say it with the people listening, so they could learn from you as well. أسأل الله العظيم رب. I ask Allah Al-Azim, the great. So I only ask by Allah Azza wa Jal. Rabb al-Arsh al-Azim, the Lord of the great throne. He is Azim, Allah, and He is the Lord of the Azim throne. Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, the biggest of all creations is what? Throne. How big is it? Prophet of Allah, he said, to give you a similar sort of comparison you could understand. He said, the throne, in terms of size-wise, to the stool, the stool, it's called the kursi, to the stool, how is the stool in terms of size to the throne? It's like throwing a ring into the desert. So if you throw the ring into the desert, what happens? Can you find it? Can you spot it? No. Same thing with the stool to the throne. The throne is much bigger. And the whole heavens, the whole universe of galaxies and all of that, compared to that stool, the kursi, is like a ring thrown in the desert. So you have now the whole of this universe and all of the nebulas and all of that is just to the size of the kursi, the stool, the step called the stool, it's just like a ring in the desert. So this is ring in the desert, How is about Allah Azza wa Jalla? Allah, when He was nothing there. No beginning, no end. Why no beginning? Because Allah, He was with nothing. When do you have a beginning? When you have time, isn't it? And the time is what? Created. So if the time was not there, that means there's no beginning. Because only you have beginning when there's time. And time was not created. There was no time, no space, no place. All of that was not created. Allah was there and nothing was there. No place, no gap, no space and no time. So no beginning, no end. I ask you, Allah, the Lord of the greatest of all creation of yours, which is the throne. Allah created the throne, then He had made istiwa on top of it. What is istiwa? Al-Ala, goes above it. Istiwa, which is suitable to His Majesty. We don't know how Allah looked like. We don't know how He made istiwa. But istiwa in Arabic means gone above. Ala. How He gone above? I don't know. I don't know how. But is there any how? Yes, there's a how. I believe there's a how, but I don't know the how. Do you understand that? I know the meaning of istawa. It's ala. And I know that there is a how for that istiwa, but I don't know that how. It is suitable to His Majesty. So He created the throne, and then He made istiwa on His arsh. I ask you, O Lord, the Azim, the great, the Lord of the great throne, to put cure into you, to cure you. So subhanAllah, I say this 7 times. It's like a doctor prescribing 7 tablets. Okay? So you take 7 tablets, you take 8 or 6, and you keep doing that, you might kill yourself. And this is the doctor of the heart, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Tell you to do it how many times? So if you do it, I'm going to do it 8. You might kill yourself. Do the same prescription. 7, 7. So he said, if there is any time in his age, and he's going to live, he will be cured by the will of Allah. He will be cured. قَالْ عُوفِيَ مِنْ وَجَعِهِ. Prophet of Allah pays a visit to somebody, he would say, like he visits Za'd, Allahumma shfi Sa'dan, Allahumma shfi Sa'dan, Allahumma shfi Sa'dan. He keeps saying, oh Lord, what? Cure Sa'd. So that's another dua. So you know the name of the patient? Muhammad. Allahumma shfi Muhammad, Allahumma shfi Muhammad. Okay? Or this one, Asalullah al-Azim, Rabb al-Azim, and yushfiya. Or رب الناس أذهب الباس واشفي أنت الشافي لا شفاء إلا شفاءك شفاء لا يغادر سقما. 3 times. Or you bring sand, dip it, and look at it by looking to the heavens. بسم الله بتربة أرضنا بريقة بعضنا يشفى سقيمنا. And then rub it against where the pain is of that person. So sand, I shouldn't say that, dirt. Bring the dirt with your finger, the index, point it to the dirt, take it, point it to the heavens, look at it, say Bismillah, the name of Allah. بِتُرْبَةِ أَرْضِنَا, by the dirt of our land, our earth. بِرِيقَةِ بَعْضِنَا, by the saliva of ours. يَشْفَى سَقِيمُنَا, our ill person will be cured. بِإِذْنِ رَبِّنَا, by the permission of Allah. Then you rub it, and you feel pain. Shaykh Al-Albani, when he got ill, he taught us to do that. To do that. He taught us to do that. Shaykh Al-Albani, rahmatullah, he used to teach in every situation of his. If he eats with people, he's teaching. If he sits with people, he's teaching. If he's going for a picnic with his family, he's teaching. Everything's teaching. The only time maybe he's not teaching is in the toilet. But he's teaching. He's all the time teaching. You learn from him lessons. So there's no such thing that there's waste. No waste. Right. Okay. Go ahead.
Hadeeth 537.
By the way, if you haven't got the access to sit next to his head, lots of people there, then sit wherever it is available. And always be khafif. What's khafif? Light. We don't want the heavy guest. Unless you're a sheikh or a teacher, maybe he wants you to read on him and you want to. And don't be stingy on reading on him. Don't wait for him to ask you. Because you can exempt him from the 70,000, go into paradise without reckoning, without punishment. Give him the ruqyah yourself. So if you are not really wanted, go. Go. Just give him salam. That's it. Go. Don't be heavy. Because maybe the ill person as well, he's got something wrong with his abdomen, tummy. So you want to pass wind. How can he pass wind with you around? Well, it's not a joke. Allah, it's not a joke. So get you out. Please come out. He wants to, release himself. He can't go to the toilet. And because I know lots of people had told me that. They were ill. This man gave me pain. Please, don't let him come inside. He's just chit-chat for a long time. Gives me headache. Makes me more ill. Some of the people, when they pay visit to the sick people in our hospital, that there's no such thing, respect for the rule of no smoking. They come and smoke next to the person who's ill. Somebody sent me a picture. I don't know if it's been Photoshop or real one, but I believe it. That these people paid a visit to the sick person. Those people who paid a visit, 2 people, they went on the bed of the ill person and they started smoking, while the ill person, he went to the chair which was supposed to be for the visitors. So the ill person is on the chair of the visitors and the 2 people to visit him is on his ill bed. And they're smoking. And they're chit-chatting with the mobiles. I believe that. Now, last one please.
Hadeeth 537. Al-Rabi' bin Abdullah said, I went with Al-Hasan to visit
Al-Hasan al-Basri. To visit Qatada.
Al-Hasan sat by his head and asked after him and then made supplication for him. He said,
Allahumma shfi qalbah wa shfi saqamah.
O Allah, heal his heart and heal his illness.
So you're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to heal and cure the person from the illness. By this we'll come to the end. And the following chapter will be, what does the person, because this is the end of the chapter of the illness. Now, after that, so the illness is finished now. I'll put a line here. All the illness is finished. Following chapter is what it says?
What a man does in his house.
Has nothing to do with the illness. What does the man do in his house? Okay, so if you have any question regarding what we have heard, please go ahead. And if you have any question regarding something that you need to know about your religion, go ahead, inshallah. Tafadhal.
With reference to if you have an illness that is contagious, like flu, sometimes you have to go to work and it spreads. And you constantly, in the season now, everyone's getting cold over and over again. And some flus can be harmful to some of the people.
Well, if the person, he's got a flu and he knows it's contagious. So sometimes the flu is, well, if you just don't cough into the people's faces. It's not going to be contagious, is it? Well, I would say that normally it is the case. Like in school, they don't allow the children. They go home. Stay at home. Don't spread it among the children. And I think at work they will tell you to stay at home, isn't it?
Depends on how sick you've been before.
Okay.
Sometimes you're too
Then
sick
go.
that they sack you.
If they're going to say, I will come, minimize as much as I'll minimize as much as I can to, infect the people, but suit themselves. That's what they want. Khalas. Get the whole company ill. You can do.
But there'll be no sin upon you.
No.
Because you're
No.
forced to do that.
No, it's not a disease which is like that. It's not like the leprosy. Do you understand? So let's say the HIV, what's it called? AIDS. HIV. If the AIDS was to spread through air, I would say just stay home, don't leave. Because it's a very bad disease. It's a killer. But because it's only spread through blood and saliva and all of that, then it's no problem. No problem not to have it, no problem as in if you have. But some people that might have it, not because of haram things. He married somebody and that person, whether the wife or the husband, one of them, he was a revert, for example, he didn't know that he was carrying the virus. It was not diagnosed. But HIV now these days, it became not like the major ones through the advance of, medicine. But even if they start to cure it properly, Allah will strike them with another disease because they can't do this the same thing or legalize what we know about. Allah al-Musta'an. Fadl.
Some people they say Allah has 99 names, and others say you shouldn't limit the names of Allah to 99. Is the difference?
Person who said 99 names, correct. But if he said only 99 names, that's something else. We say that it is one of the opinions of the scholars, but it's wrong to say Allah has got only 99 names. It's wrong. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's names, what we know about is definitely more than 99. And we don't know about is definitely more than what we know and the 99.
Is there a difference of opinion?
About what?
If it's just 99?
Yeah, there's a difference of opinion. Yes. But the correct opinion, that the 99 names, which is in Sahih Bukhari and Muslim, إِنَّ لِلَّهِ 99 إِسْمًا مَنْ أَحْصَاهَا دَخَلَ الْجَنَّةِ. Allah's got 99 names. If you count them, know what the meaning of them, implement them, then you will enter paradise. But this hadith doesn't say that Allah's got only 99 names. Okay? Now, from the names of Allah, it's 99 names. But when we count the names of Allah Azza wa Jal, that we know from the book of Allah and the Sunnah of the Prophet, then more than 110, 120. More than 120. And also, وَمَا اسْتَأْثَرْتَ بِهِ فِي الْعِلْمِ الْغَيْبِ عِنْدَكَ. When we make the dua, we call upon you with the names that you have kept to yourself, which we don't know about. So that dua tells us that there is names we don't know about. Because Allah kept it for Himself. Now, فضل يا أستاذ.
I was going to ask you, there's one narration that you mentioned about there was this little boy, he led the salah. I don't know if he's a Sahaba, but if he's radiallahu anhu. He led the salah and his back was exposed.
Amr ibn Salam, yeah. Companion.
It was a companion, eh? Inshallah.
Yeah.
Where can I find the narration that says talks about this? Because I speak to one young boy in the masjid.
Sahih Bukhari says.
I told him about this young boy, something happened to him. And he was thinking, that's not true. That might not be true. He told me to bring some proof for him.
Put him in Sahih Bukhari.
Sahih Bukhari, eh? His dad even came to me after as well. He said, you told my son something about it.
About what? About he doesn't believe. About the buttocks? About the what?
About the boy, there was a young boy that led the salah.
Is it to do with the salah or to do with showing his bum?
Was it showing his bum, isn't it, the narration?
Yeah, but I'm just saying, is the one that he didn't want to believe, is it showing the bum or him leading the prayer?
I
Everything.
wasn't even too sure if it was showing the bum or if it was the back.
No, it's the bum.
It's the bum, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I'm going to refer to him tomorrow, inshallah.
Yeah. Ist, bum. Proper. He's a boy. He's only 7 years old. And these companions didn't have enough clothes. No. I'm just supposed to put in my jacket on. Father.
Shaykhi, in the prayer of witr prayer, which is the manner in which the person is supposed to sit? In the witr prayer, which is the manner in which the person is supposed to sit? No.
The witr, the leg is iftirash, same as you do it in the 2 rak'ah. So you don't do tawarruk. The only tawarruk you do that if you pray your witr in the following way, that is 7 rak'ah or 9 rak'ah together. 7 rak'ah together, then you pray 6 and you sit in the middle, then the 7th rak'ah, then you make it with tawarruk. The 9 rak'ah you make 8 rak'ahs, first tashahhud iftirash, 9th rak'ah with tawarruk. All the time, if a prayer has got 1 tashahhud, iftirash, if it's got 2 tashahhud, the 2nd tashahhud is with tawarruk. Now, tfaddal.
So two questions, but not related.
No problem.
The dua between the adhan and the iqamah. The person that missed it hearing the adhan still comes in and doesn't make the dua for the iqamah. That's still acceptable, counted as that.
A person did not repeat with the adhan, and then he realized the adhan has been called.
That he heard that adhan has been called already.
So somebody told him the adhan has been called.
Yeah. So now
Yeah, you could make dua, no problem.
Is it still acceptable?
It's still, inshallah, hopefully.
Shall we say that between Adhan and Ikama, the dua?
Yes. And the dua is that what the Prophet ﷺ taught us. اللهم رب الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آتي محمد الوسيلة والفضيلة وابعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد. This is the dua. It's not the dua, oh Lord, give me a wife.
Also the other
Yeah, no, this is the dua we're talking about after the prayer, after the adhan, is this the dua. So it's nothing to do with give me a wife and give me a car. And
between Adhan and Ikama, it's only specific to that Adhan dua. Allahumma rabba al-Adab.
yes, it's specific. That's what we say. In contrast to some of the people from Al-Hijaz, I've seen them, we don't raise up our hands. It's a specific dua, we don't raise up our hands. Just like when you go to the toilet. Don't say, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min khubuthi wal khaba'ith. Don't say that. Say, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min khubuthi wal khaba'ith. Without raising up the hands. Naam.
Also, wiping over the socks.
Wiping with a sock, what's wrong with it?
Is it like both hands together, or you can do it one hand, then first the left?
If you are agile to do it two hands together, mashallah. And this, no problem. So you could do it by your right, both, one and then after the other. You could do it with the left, one on the right and then on the left. You could do it with two hands, one on the right, one on the left. Okay, so you know, you could do them together. You could do them the right on the right, and then after a bit of seconds, left on the left. You're open for that.
Either way, whatever way. There's no specific.
Yeah, but you can't use the 2 feet with one hand, like that.
Also, another question. What's in Salah? What's the correct way of spitting lightly?
What is the way of what? Sorry?
Spitting lightly, and what's the comes?
Specifically likely. What is the way to do it?
Yeah, what's the way correct way?
The way is to do it is not to make people to be attracted to what you're doing. So it has to be with tilting the head of yours just slightly like that. That's the left. So I'm just about 2 centimeters, 1 inch, like this. The person who's next to me can't really notice. Otherwise, I'm going to make everybody spit. I'm bringing them shaitan, you know. So it's not like this.
Someone will punch you.
Wallahi, I have seen this person. Wallahi, he was tall. The second row or the first row. Wallahi, he did like this. And I know that person is a stubborn person. He doesn't want to listen to the talks and he just goes. He thinks he'll learn it. Yeah, Allah al-Musta'an.
One last question.
Because if you don't take it from a sheikh or a teacher, that's where you're going to end up. Read to the left. I took it from our sheikh. So one of the sheikh told us how to do it. So if you don't take it from the scholar, this is how you're going to end up. The knowledge is not just in the book and the internet and Google. This is the key for the knowledge. It's only the chest of the scholars. So we take it from the scholars. So we transfer it to you. So you can't just say, oh, I know. People, they draw the shaitan with horns. I was asked by a child 3 days ago on Al-Khamis. He says to me, did the shaitan Iblis come to our father Adam, and he's a child, and Hawa in his real form? Did he come in his real form as a shaitan, or he was looking like a man? I said, before I answer the question, when you say about his real form, what do you think about his real form? He's got horns? I said, yeah, he's got horns, isn't he? Because I knew his image about the shaitan, he's got horns. He's got no horns. And something came to my mind. I said to him, and everybody was laughing. I said, you know, these shayateen, jinn, they've got spouses and wife. So imagine the wife, she's going to see her husband with horns. She's going to be happy. She's going to be scared of him. I don't know how it came to my mind, but so this horns, I don't know where is it coming from. But there is wrong translation and wrong assumption. Prophet of Allah said that the sun rises between the two horns, it says, but it's not horns, akhi. Qarn in Arabic, it doesn't mean horn as well. Even some of the Arabic things qarn. They're not. It means the side of the head. So shaitan's got head. Like a head. Then how does it look like? It's a head. This head has got 2 sides. These are 2 sides called what? Horns. I've got my horns here. But they are the place of horns, but they're not horns. So when the sun rises, he put his head. So that the people prostrated to the sun, they prostrated to him. Same thing when it sets. That's all. So every place there's a sunset, sunrise, there's shayateen there, they're putting their heads. That's what it means. But translation wrong, because once I was having a talk called Magic and Sihr. And the person who was designing the CD, I saw it, and I said to the brother, what are you doing? Horn? He's putting me shaitan horns and everything. I said, no, it's not right. And also from the Israeliyat, the Israeli Jewish books as well, they give you that shaitan has got horns and God knows what it looks like. No, طيب.
One last question. You know when making wudu at home, in the bathroom, when you wash the feet, with the right foot, can you dry with a foot towel and then we do the left foot, just to make sure the water doesn't go on the floor? Is that acceptable?
When you make a wudu, whatever you make in wudu,
In the bathroom, sir.
doesn't matter bathroom. So you make a wudu. It doesn't make a difference in the bathroom or in the masjid.
Necessarily, you have your own
Wudu.
foot towel. To dry
So
it.
when he's saying that every time you wash a foot, you dry it, and you go to the left foot. How long does it take you the drying of yours?
2 seconds, 5 seconds.
So we put the towel.
Full towel, yeah.
So if you don't dry it, what happens?
The whole floor may be wet, or the sand or whatever.
Is it sand?
Sand
Sandal.
on the floor.
Okay. Right. From the conditions of the wudu, it's called close sequence. Do you know close sequence? That means every limb has to be washed and the other limb has to be washed after it. If the gap is too much, that the limb is going to dry, then you have to start from the beginning. But here there's no gap, it's just you are drying your under the foot just basically because of the wetness. Inshallah there's no harm for that. But you have to be careful, there's no harm for that. You have to be careful. That some people, they make the sock to be gone on the first foot after they dry it, and they wash the second and they put the sock on top of the second one. In this case, you can't wipe on the khuf, because you have entered the first sock before your wudu is complete. Alright? So to finish both feet, and then you put the sock on. So hopefully there's nothing, inshallah, to break the sequence. The breaking the sequence, what it means is that the person had left a gap so much that his limbs are dried. So if you, for example, let's say, make an wudu, and you forgot your mouth to rinse it, you wash your feet, close the tap, oh, my mouth, no problem, go do the mouth. But if you went and you started, there's a gap there, and your limbs are dried, oh, my mouth. Now this mouth of yours has to start from what? The beginning, because the close sequence had been broken. Prophet ﷺ saw a man, he was praying, and he saw in his foot the size of a coin is dry. That means the water did not touch it. Prophet ﷺ commanded him not to invalidate his prayer. He said, go and make the wudu from the beginning. Start the wudu from the beginning. Now, طيب, last question for the man who's looking after our lectures. Jazakallah khair. Fadal.
For those who lose the hope for regaining the health, there is a dua for it.
Sorry, again, sir?
For those who lose the hope to regain their health.
Lose the hope?
Allahumma khfirli warhamni walhiqni birrafiqil a'la. Is that why if a good person in good health, he recited, it would be a bidah, or he can recite it?
He lost hope or his health?
No, for those who lose the hope to regain their health, like he's in desperation.
Oh, he's in desperation.
Yeah, desperation.
No, there's no such dua in desperation that you do that.
It said, Allahumma khfirli warhamni.
That's not right. That's not right. There's no such thing. In desperation, you always make the general dua, but there's no such thing, desperation dua.
This is before death. Like,
Even before death, there's no such thing. Prophet ﷺ did not do before his death such a supplication. You're asking me, is it authentic? It's not. Is that all right? Okay?
I just want to know whether any person in good health, he can recite that dua.
No, this dua is not being quoted in that quotation. Prophet of Allah, Allahumma gfirli warfa'ni wajburni, it's between the two sajda in the prayer. Okay? In between the two sajda. So if you use some dua in certain places where the Prophet did not use it, it becomes a bid'ah. Okay? جزاك الله خير. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك. أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.